Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Kim with Creative Crafticality, and today I will be sewing in my junk journal. So I wanted to take you along and just let you know how I do it, the tips and tricks and things like that. Right now I am working in my Barbie junk journal. This is now available in my Etsy shop. It's the Airline Stewardess Barbie Little Golden Book. So when I sew in my junk journal, I use my brother's sewing machine. You can see there the model number. This is a very inexpensive machine. I believe I picked it up at Walmart. I'll put a link down below for one that's comparable to this one, but I use this all the time, and what I use is a standard needle in my machine, and then most of the time I use a zigzag stitch. Now when I start sewing on something, I always do a back stitch to make that knot, and then I continue on with whatever stitch I'm using. This machine has lots of different stitches, as you can see there in the right hand side. There's lots of stitches, but I just pushed my back button there and did a little stitch. I use paper clips to hold my papers together, and then go ahead and stitch alongside there. And then I stitch a back stitch at the end. So that was just sewing in a belly band that goes horizontally with my pages. And now I'm turning it around, and I'm going to sew the other side to the other end of that paper. This is one of my scrapbook starts to one of my signatures. I always use scrapbook paper to do the first page of my signatures, and yeah, I usually try and coordinate that with the cover of the book and with the theme of the book and everything. So I have a cutting mechanism on the side of my sewing machine that I can just cut my threads off. Otherwise you just cut them off using scissors. So now I'm going to work through each of my signatures. I usually go through and paper clip trims and laces and things like that. So on this page I have this flower trim that I wanted to add to the side of the page. So I'll just go ahead and do my back stitch and then zigzag all the way down there. Now you don't have to use a zigzag, you can use whatever stitch you want, but what you want to do is make sure that you make your stitch really wide. So I'll go up in the top and change my stitch length to a 3.5 at least, or a 4, and that way it stitches faster, and it also, like, it doesn't rip, like make a line or a hole on the paper because the stitching is so close. So you definitely want to make your stitches wide. So now I have this CD envelope. I wanted to just attach it with the zigzag stitch. So I have the envelope flap there. I flattened it out and I'm sewing it on the side of my paper. That way the envelope will fold and go and fold in on the other side of the paper, if that makes sense. Now what I usually try and do is use a contrasting thread or a main thread that is a color throughout the book. Okay, so sorry about that. Trying to make it a little bit wider of an angle, or the angle change. So now what I'm going to do is make a ruffle with some fabric. So I just do a back stitch, and then I use my zigzag again, and I go down and I pucker the fabric under, and just keep doing that until I get to the end of the book page. Now I will most of the time sew my ruffles directly onto the page before it's ruffled and make the ruffle as I go, but I also have made ruffles separately and just sew the fabric separate and then glue that onto the page. So you can do it either way. It's easier, I think, onto the page, because sometimes to get it started when it's just the fabric, it gets caught up like underneath at the beginning, and then you get a big giant knot and you have to start over. But it's really not that big of a deal, just sometimes that happens. So I'll go all the way to the bottom of the page and then clip it. I'm going to use my scissors on this because I have the fabric as well, so I'll just hold my threads and my fabric and cut it along the bottom edge. Now I use my sewing machine for sewing fabric as well as paper, and sewing on paper doesn't affect the way the sewing machine works or anything like that. I've had the sewing machine for a few years now, and it's done well. As long as you have a good needle in there, you know, change your needle when you need to, and clean out underneath where the bobbin thread is. Just make sure you don't have any dust or fuzzies built up down there. You should be good to go. So this was just some lace that I had. I like to sew things on the sides of my pages, also pockets on the pages, as you saw before, the belly band. So anything to add more texture into my book. It just makes it a little more interesting, and I really like the look. So I'm just trimming the excess off. Now I have this red lace, and I'm just going to do the same thing, do a zigzag all the way down the side. I love adding the side things that stick out the side of the book. It just makes, again, adds more texture, and I really love the look. Now if you're worried about things moving as you're sewing onto the page and not being able to hold it enough, you could put paper clips going down and then pull them off like you do sewing, but that I think is just a little bit harder to me. But you also could do little bits of glue, maybe at the top, bottom, and center, to hold it on, like let it dry and then sew. That will help as well. So on this page I have some pom-pom trim, and I also have another belly band. So I've left my paper clip on where the belly band is, and I'm starting at the top with the pom-pom trim. And the pom-pom trim is a little bit trickier because you have to hold the pom-poms to make sure they don't get in the way of the needle and the foot. So you just kind of have to push it off to the side there and just make sure the ribbon part of the pom-pom trim is lined up, and then you pull that paper clip off where the belly band or the pocket or whatever it is that's on your page, and just go all the way down to the bottom. I believe that was a pocket. I'm not sure. Anyway, there you have it. Do your back stitch and then go ahead and clip it. Let me know down below in the comments if you do sewing in your book and how you like it and what kind of sewing machine you have. So I have another piece of lace here. The lace, or the ruffled lace like this, or the gathered lace, I think is always a little bit harder to sew because you have to make sure the ruffle is out of the way. This one is has a small side, so you just have to keep holding it. Sometimes it gets a little crooked, but that's okay. It still looks good. And this one has a pocket as well, so I have to pull my paper clip off. One reason why I like using the zigzag stitch is that it's easier to catch it and keep it straight. If you're doing a straight stitch, if you get off any little bit of amount, then you have to kind of go back, and I don't know, it's just easier with a zigzag, I find anyway. Alright, so I missed my belly band on that side, so I'm going back in and adding the belly band. Sometimes that happens. All right. Clip everything there. Now I am sewing some rickrack on. I love to do this just to add some color to the sides of the pages. I'll sew it along the side like this. Sometimes I'll sew it on the bottom or the top. It's just whatever you know, whatever your preference is. With rickrack, I usually like to leave a little bit sticking off the top and the bottom of the page, and then it just looks, it adds to the top and the bottom when you look at it when it's all put together. So I'm going through my pages here. On this one I have a fabric pocket, so I just have it paper clipped. Pull the paper clip off and do my zigzag stitch all the way around. Now I'll sew my items in on my pages, as well as do sewing on tags and journaling cards and things like that. Anything that I'm embellishing to stick in the book, I'll try and add stitching to that. So I'm on to my next signature, and I'm going to just add this lace here. And same thing, just do a back stitch and then the zigzag and go all the way down. And I'm trying to line up the middle of that lace onto the edge. I usually match my bobbin thread with my top thread, but you could totally do your bobbin thread different, just like a coordinating color. Now I have this embroidered ribbon and I'm making it a belly band. So I just stitched it across the top there, then I'm going to trim it off and then go to the bottom and stitch the bottom part. If you haven't seen my Temu haul, I picked out a Handi stitcher, which is a little mini sewing machine, handheld. I've had other little sewing machines, but this one was a handheld one, and I reviewed it on my video, so if you want to take a look at that, that's a cheaper option for you. Of course, it's not going to do exactly what a real sewing machine is going to do, but it will do a decent amount or a decent job on adding texture to your sewing, to your junk journals. So if you want to check out that video, go ahead and go over there. I have the link for it as well, and a code for you if you're interested in buying anything from Temu. So hopefully this video was helpful in learning how to sew in your junk journal by watching what I'm doing here. If you have any questions, leave them down below and I'll try to answer them for you. I'll have links down below for my sewing machine and also the Handi Stitcher sewing machine on Temu. So if you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you again next time. This is Kim with Creative Crafticality. Bye. God bless.